Okay, we are live. Hey, what up, KX crew? Welcome to the KX podcast. Oh, I always start a second early.
Okay.
Hey, what up, KX crew? Welcome to the KX podcast. We're here with Kitcho.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you, Zach, for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been talking a bit for a while now, and we just
Yeah,
eventually
yeah,
had to get live because I think we got some good momentum. We're rolling here, so we we haven't
yeah,
captured
definitely.
the magic yet.
Yeah, definitely. Because I stumbled across Zach's content and I found it really interesting. And we just started writing back and forth. I think I actually looked for your Instagram because I saw a few of your YouTube videos. And yeah, I love the content and found it super interesting. And I reached out to Zach just to get a better idea of who he is and the man behind the channel. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is really cool. This is a really unique situation and not something that I would normally do. I mean, like, we really don't know each other at all, aside from like the 10 minutes we just spent kind of introducing each other. So I think this is a really cool idea for a video. So you're from Sydney. Okay. So you're from Sydney, Australia, but are you living there now?
No, so now I'm living in northern Spain, the province of Asturias, the city of Oviedo. So the question will be like, how would an Australian guy get to a small town in northern Spain? That's a typical question I get. And it turns out I was playing rugby in Sydney, Australia, and I had like a reasonable level, not super high, but decent enough. And I got the offer to come to Spain to play rugby. And at that time, I was failing like university and just I was a young dude in my 20s, 20 or 21 to be exact. And I just thought, what a great opportunity, go to Spain, maybe meet some girls, learn a language. And I ended up meeting like one girl after like 2 weeks and then became my wife. And 10 years later, so just how it happens, man. You never know. So I got to travel around Europe, playing in a few different places. And I kind of always loved the idea. As a kid, I really loved wrestling, like WWE, WWF. Just loved that kind of image and loved kind of contact sports. But as a kid, myself, I wasn't really a naturally great athlete at all, and that kind of spurred me on to kind of pursue my sport a bit more when I fresh out of school. And then when it came a time to get a proper job, proper profession, I was teaching English for a bit, as a second language here. And I always fantasized about opening my own gym, my own facility. But you always think you're not worthy. You always think you're not good enough. When you really want something, you always kind of put people on, I'll use this hand, I'm using this hand too much. You put people on the pedestal and you always think to yourself, wow, I'll never get to that level. So I finally got the courage to open a gym, and I remember just thinking to myself, fuck, if I can just not go broke, worst case scenario, I'm going to get in really great shape, and if I can just have some people to train. And fast forward now, 4.5 years later, I've got two gyms, and before the coronavirus, we had waiting lists, and it's kind of a unique approach. Gyms and gym owners, they talk about it and think about it a lot like people talk about their children. Theirs is always the best. So if I say that about my gyms, I probably think the same. One is Oviedo strength, one is Garaje strength. And yeah, it's just I just want it to be a place where, Zach, for example, if your mum or auntie walked into the gym, we give her the same level of respect if some really jack dude walked in. But at the same time, I want that jack dude to be able to get a workout. So I don't want it to be too centric on let's look after. We look after everybody, but I just want it to be kind of a place which is super chill, and there is that not barrier to entry of you have to be a mad dog to train. And that went really well. Then the COVID thing happened, and here in Spain, because it really spread in Europe to begin with, and it came over to Spain pretty quick, smart. And in Europe, everyone just lives on top of each other. Everyone lives in flats and apartment buildings. So maybe, for example, in Canada, when you just leave your house in the morning, you're the only one leaving your front door. But in Spain, there's 50 people who live in an apartment block, and that's 50 people touching that same doorway. And it's very common for 2 or 3 generations to live in the same house. So it's been a bit of a mess, to be honest, over the past. over the past 9 months. And how's it been for you and your business over the past 9 months?
Yeah, I mean, Canada is like, we were doing really well, and then because our neighbors are the states that naturally, float our way whether we liked it or not. So we're in Code Red. We are not supposed to be interacting. We can't go out. Obviously, my one-on-one personal training is come to a dead halt. So I'm making the switch to online training now. But I'm interested in your gym. So you have 2 gyms in Spain, right? How come you didn't want to bring them back to Australia?
Yeah, well, the thing is, Spain. So Europe and this part of Europe, I would say, would be about 5 years behind the trends. So maybe in Canada, the US, Australia, small boutique-ishy, like high-end fitness gyms have been around for a few years. I saw the opportunity here that they weren't here yet. So I was like, fuck, like this concept obviously works. Yeah. So I was one of the first people. So there was 2 things. There was either like a personal training studio, which would be just like, like my garage here, a squat rack and whatever you see behind me. And then there was like big box gyms. So this kind of smaller personal, small group training didn't exist. So the first 6 months to a year, there was a bit of like kickback. People like didn't get it. Like, is it personal training? Is it not? And I said, no, it's group training. Like we have this equipo, which is this team mentality. Knowing the team lets everyone else down. There's like this level of accountability, which is crazy cool and crazy popular. And it slowly but surely picked up. And when I opened, 6 months, a year later, 2 years, they started popping up all over the place. Because, they always say where there's Coke, there's always going to be a Pepsi in whatever industry. So fortunately, I was a Coca-Cola here and popped up a few Pepsis, and which is fine. Like competition makes you better. So when a few other similar-ish, I'd hate to say the same, similar-ish gyms opened up, people were like, fuck, dude, are you worried? Excuse my language. Dude, are you worried? And I just said, nah, dude, that's going to make me better. That's going to make me invest more in education. That's going to make me invest more in creating my service. So it's like anything, if there's only one restaurant in town, you're not going to make too much of an effort. But if there's restaurants all over the place, you're going to make sure your customer service is good. You're going to make sure the food's fresh. And I think fitness is no different. And for the moment, we've been successful. So like in March, when the virus happened, we took everything online, but we just thought it was going to be 2 weeks. So I just gifted everything. I'm like, hey, you want like a dumbbell? Take it with you. Hey, I'm going to coach 3 live classes a day and do it whenever you want. It's going to be free because this is going to be 2 weeks and we're back in the gym. And everyone was like, oh, what a good dude. Like he's looking after us. That's great. But then it was another week. The problem with the Spanish government, everything's in 2 weeks announcements. Then it was 6 weeks. Then it was 2 months. And then I was like, geez, like everyone's got my equipment. I'm making no money. And then I had to kind of like almost go back on my word a little bit because I thought the situation was like this. And after 2.5, 3 months, we could open up in the summer. The summer months, we had some of our most successful months, but with pretty strict restrictions with distance and stuff and cleaning. And unfortunately, with the gym, so much stuff got rusted rusty because when you're cleaning stuff constantly and sometimes people don't dry the surfaces, which was a bit of a shame. And then they closed us down again in October, November, December, and we opened up again on Monday this week. And a lot of people came back, some people not. But here as well, it's mandatory to train with a mask. And we do a lot of high intensity stuff. And if you're already overweight or if you've already got like health issues, if you then need to train with a mask, it's a bit more difficult. So so it is what it is. It's kind of like forced me to rethink how I do things, and I think everybody really, because I think this might be the gold rush of our generation, the fitness industry going online. And I think the people who are valiant and the people who are really thinking outside the box will be successful, because if you actually try online classes, they're pretty fun and not too bad. I compare it to like a Netflix documentary or whatever. If you get into it, you're hooked. You got to watch it. And if you have a coach who you like and you really get into that coach, I think then online could be very successful. I see my own gym opening up again. People crave that connection, like because bars are closed, restaurants are going to have 4 people per table. So people crave that human interaction, and we can give that to them in a gym. But I think as well, you could potentially give that to people. Online as well in a successful manner. So I think that's what I'm going to. Well, that's what I have been doing. So if I can explain a little bit, Shane Farmer, the creator of Dark Horse Rowing, which is the biggest YouTube rowing channel in the world, we hooked up in March, and he's had tremendous success already online before the virus situation. And we created a small community, and I'd hate to call it an online community because it is on the internet, but it's not online. It's a lot more diverse than that. And we've had some really great success, and hopefully create more products in the future. Because at the moment, I just see that as the future in relation to health and fitness. And how do you see it from your position, Zach, in Canada and stuff? How do you think the fitness industry is going to go?
Yeah, I think the way you described it as a gold rush is a really good way. It really is a sink or swim situation. Like there's businesses that are going under, and there's people that are just adapting. Like I've heard of gym owners that are renting their equipment out, like similar to what you did, but for money. And just desperately trying to make some kind of income. So that's can only last so long. And even if this virus wasn't happening, this is where technology is moving anyway. I think this lit a fire under us to do this now instead of waiting another 5-10 years for technology to get there. So those of us that can adapt now are going to be well off for the next few years.
Yeah, because I've got a few friends who live in big cities paying big rent. But if everything's closed and you can't do anything, why would you fork out, like thousands of dollars a month to live in a shoebox? And then if you're working from home as well.
Yeah, no, sorry. I was just going to say, like, people are now finding the conveniences of online stuff more and more, right?
Yeah.
So people are going to realize, like, yeah, you can do this health and fitness thing online and from home, because if your trainer is competent, they're going to be able to make that happen for you.
Yeah, I think so. And if there's a level of accountability on both parts, I think it can be the way to go. But I think a lot of people may be making the mistake of trying to go. So it's really interesting. If someone takes out like a $20 or a $50 note from their pocket and buys something tangible, they're like, okay, I bought this book, I bought this whatever. But often when something is online, a lot of people say, oh, it's going for the free thing because there's so many free things. But the reason why the free thing doesn't work is there's no level of accountability. Because if people kind of make that financial investment, then it's like, geez, I'm paying Zach X, so I should really show up to his live classes and make the most out of it. Because I made the mistake of gifting people too much stuff, and then they don't do it. But when people pay you, when people pay you a good chunk of money, isn't like, it's interesting because when the whole virus situation hit, and we reopened the gym the first time, there's one thing people hate more than like the whole virus thing, and that's losing money. You know what I mean? So if people have paid months in advance, they're going to show up. And I think that's the same for online training. If people have made an investment in advance, 9 times out of 10, they'll at least make the effort to show up. If you gift it, then maybe it won't be so effective.
Yeah, I agree. I'm learning that too. That's a hard lesson to learn after many years of giving things away for free. If people put a little money in it, they get a little bit of skin in the game, they're a little more invested. And that's just like, there's tons, like everyone knows that there's free stuff out there. If you Google workouts, if you YouTube workouts, like, and that's something that I've been promoting for a really long time. It's like, you don't need a lot. You can find a lot of stuff for free, but just like you mentioned, when it's free, there's no one holding you accountable. And that's like talking about people craving connection. I think that's exactly it too. That connection holds people accountable, and you feel responsible to your coach or to your gym buddy or to your schedule, your routine,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you on that. And I think we're really interesting because I think there needs to be a nice middle ground. I think if anything, if the thing is too like generic, if people are just getting like PDF workouts, like unless they really know what they're doing, they'll probably fall off. I think if the thing is potentially like too much the other end, like paying personal training rates from home, I don't think most people will do that. But if there's somewhere in the middle where it's like, hey, like it's not cheap, so I'm going to get the best from the best, but it's not too expensive because most people cannot. Most people need to train 2 or 3 times a week. I feel, and every culture is different. But if people are training from their home, I think a small community type of thing could potentially work. And it's really interesting to see like how some fitness equipment has adapted. Like, have you seen those mirror things on the walls with like?
It's funny you say that. I did a YouTube video on one, and it has like 20,000 views, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't check it out. And what was your experience?
Well, I don't have one. It was me reacting to it, and the timing of this subject is really poor because I was not promoting the video, the mirror.
Yeah.
I was. The thing is, when I initially saw it, I'm like, this is really cool. This is awesome. And then when I dug into the product a little bit and I found out the price and how expensive it is, and there's like monthly fees on top of the mirror, I ripped it apart in a video. It's in a very comedic style. Yeah. So I think it's a funny video, but like I do see the value in it, and especially if you're paying regularly for it, you're obviously going to take it a lot more seriously. So
yeah, I think it's. And it depends, you know, like there's some people who, let's say a wall mirror thing, I've seen some like the weights come out, and maybe for someone who's an untrained athlete, there's sufficient resistance to create potential growth in the muscle. But maybe for some other people who kind of like have a bit more experience, they need to have dumbbells, they need to have weights. And there was a big issue here. Like I imagine where you are in Canada as well, there was a time when it was impossible to get dumbbells, impossible to get... has it improved now?
I'm not sure, actually. I personally haven't bought any gym equipment. I have one pair of dumbbells. Like I moved away from my home city for work experience for my wife. She's a paramedic. Cool. It's really competitive to get that kind of job in the city. So when we moved here, I put all my fitness equipment in a storage locker. And now with like, we didn't think we were going to be here so long. So all my fitness equipment, I can't even go to Winnipeg now because of this COVID situation. So,
but like, for example, does your driving license say Winnipeg, or does it say?
It says Churchill, which is where I'm living now.
Okay. So, but like, what's the situation? Like, you can't go, or like, as in there's like police checks and it's like.
Well, you could. I could go, but I mean, it's a huge responsibility for my community because I'm living in a small town of probably under 1,000 people, and we are at 0 cases. We've been at 0 cases this whole time, and all it takes is one person to go to Winnipeg because they think they have the most important reason, and then they bring it back. The whole town will have it within a couple of weeks, and we won't even know it. So it's just too risky.
And how have you found it in living in a smaller town? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely a city guy. I really miss the man when you're working really hard at something and you're in such a busy place and everyone else is working really hard at their own lives. Like that charges me up. Like I feel inspired being in a place like that. But when I moved to a small town, I found that my aspirations went down as well. The bar is really low. Like people are not everyone, but in general, people are content to kind of close through the week, hit up the local bar, you know, like kind of everyone has their activities where they go snowmobiling or quadding or hunting or whatever. But like, I don't know, it kind of, I found myself slipping into that a little bit. And recently, within the past month or so, I've kind of pulled myself out of that funk. So
yeah, like it's interesting you say that. So just with the gyms and stuff, I would never be like at home for more than like 2 or 3 hours for like eat with my family, but I'm somewhere to go, meeting, something to do. And when the virus situation started, for the first time in, I don't know, 5 years or 6 years, I was like watching a movie in the evening because I would always just be doing something. Like there's always something to do, email to be sent. And I think it was good. And as we know, just through our own experiences, like there are seasons in the body, and maybe this is like a season of winter where I just needed to kind of like chill because maybe I was about to explode. You know, I was at the time where I was probably drinking 12 to 15 coffees a day. I was wired, man. And like when you're wired and you're trying to do stuff, you just like,
yeah.
You know? And I was just like, get out of my way. Like, I'm doing this thing. I'm looking for a third location. Then the virus hit, and I thought, hey, what's important? Like family, that's super important. You know, I've got kids, which is so critical, and like just enjoying that time together. And it's tough because the first few months here, like you couldn't go outside unless it was a grocery store. You could only go X amount of times within a month, and like it was proper lockdown. Like if you have a dog, it needs to be like outside your house. It can't walk anywhere outside. So that was difficult, but it made me revalue what's important. And it showed me that I'm a communication sort of guy. Like some people can go to like a mountain and look at that mountain and be like, I feel good. I feel charged. I get that sensation from communicating with dudes like yourself and like doing stuff. So it's just different. And this whole virus has kind of like put that under a microscope for me. And who knows, like if this kind of online thing blows up, which I think it will, that could create a income for me, which is the equivalent to my income in the brick and mortar gyms with the accessibility to travel and do heaps of cool stuff. Because at the moment, it is complex to go away for more than a few weeks at a time. And coming from Australia to Europe, for me, it was all about like experiences, all about like, hey, this week, let's go to Finland. Hey, this week, let's go to Greece. Let's like do the, because that's like the advantage of living in Europe. And Australia is similar to Canada. It's like, I live here and like, that's it, you know, and the town over there is a bit different to this one, but it's kind of similar. But, you know, where I live in Spain, 2 hours that way, you're in Portugal, 4 hours that way, you're in France, what they're speaking a different language. Like, it's really cool, you know? So yeah. That's kind of what drew me to Europe, you know, and the opportunity to learn another language and to meet people. What was why I came here. So to kind of have that taken away and just to be like everyone else, stuck at home, it's been difficult.
That's interesting, man. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. No, you're you know, that's, you know, obviously Sydney, Australia, the income is like if you go like the socioeconomic brackets, people are making a lot more money in Australia, maybe 3 or 4 times more than they make here. Here it's just, and especially because I'm in a smaller city, like there's not a lot of jobs. And that's why I made the gyms in the first place, because no one would give me a job that would equate to the amount of money that I felt I needed to create a sustainable living. So that was kind of like a cool forced pressure. But then again, like being Australian, being different, being here in northern Spain, I was quirky, I was different, I had a different concept. If I started that in Australia, it might just be like, oh, there's another like bozo with like another like, you know, functional fitness gym. So I would like to give myself a bit more credit than that. You know, maybe it would be different. But I think what I originally saw as a huge weakness, I was like, oh, like I didn't learn Spanish here, and like I write like a 6-year-old in Spanish, and I don't read that well. But what I kind of learned is that is a really endearing quality. And when someone goes out of their way to learn something and to master a language or a new craft, people kind of are drawn to that and see it as a really cool thing, not as kind of like an insecurity you should be ashamed of. And part of the success of my business is because I'm just a bit different, you know? I hate to think that the business is just me. Like there's obviously other coaches who have come along the way and worked with me. But I at the same time, I do want to pat myself on the back to being like, good work, Kitcho. Like you had a vision and you just followed through with it. You had backbone to produce what I wanted. And like, would you like to have your own physical premises one day, or what do you think you'd like to do?
Like my dream is like, I actually have a very, very similar story to yours. Like I've always wanted to have kind of my own, like, not like a giant gym or like chains of gyms. I just kind of wanted one warehouse gym, but my vision is evolving over time. Right now, I would like to, like, when we move back to the city, I want my home to have a whole layer of the house to be a gym, basically. So then I can train people from home. That's kind of my current goal. And initially, it was that I wanted to train people from home and then maybe grow into like an actual physical gym. Yeah. But now I'm realizing like maybe I can just train people from home, but also have this online thing, right? So I might, like, the vision, like it wasn't even possible for me to think that way because that didn't exist before. But now with the online training, like my vision is evolving to like, maybe I can just do this online thing from home and train the people that I want to train from home. So it's steadily evolving.
Yeah, because like for me with the 2 physical facilities, like rent keeps going up, rent continues. In Spain, how the tax system works, you have like a fixed fee. So maybe in Canada, you just pay like X amount on your income. Here we have a fixed fee then on top. So that fixed fee continues every month. So like small business owners like myself are like, dude, I haven't been able to operate and you're still charging me. Like,
Yeah.
And there's no government assistance whatsoever. So I kind of knew opening a business in I wouldn't call Spain third world, but I wouldn't call it like the US or Canada or Australia in regards to running a small business. So I knew you take a risk when you open a business in a more volatile economy. And I knew if something ever happened, I thought more would be political unrest rather than like a virus. But I kind of knew if anything ever happened, it's like you're on your own. And people can be like, they say in Spanish, like simpático. People can have like sympathy for you, but like sympathy might help to pay the bills for like 1 month. You know, like, oh, here's like whatever. But 6 months a year, no one's going to pay your life for you. So you need to like really double down on that service. And I see like a lot of gyms being like post like hashtag stick with your gym, hashtag stay with us. And I'm like, well, how about hashtag deliver a great service? And then that won't even be a question.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people should be guilted into like supporting a local business. Like I see stuff like buy local, like that's awesome, that's great. If the local stuff's the best, they're going to thrive. But if they're like just getting the same stuff from the big supermarket and charging twice as much, well, why wouldn't I go to the supermarket?
Yeah. Do you think that you're going to continue to focus on the physical gym, or do you do you want to keep growing, or do you want to maybe?
Well, the thing is like before the virus, in an evening in the two locations, let's say in peak hour in the two locations, we could potentially train 60 or 70 people in big groups, small groups, people here, people there, between the two gyms. Now with the virus, it would take us all day because we have restricted to 6 people per hour. And the thing is, no one wants to train here at 2 or 3. Everyone, like Spanish culture, everyone wants to train in the evening.
Yeah, right.
So just like, well, so I'm asking people if they can like move their work hours around or if they can do it. And the thing is for me, and it's a bit of an ego check because I built up the gyms to a point where I didn't need to coach class. I still did occasionally, but I compare it to being a plumber. Like you start on the tools, then you get someone to help you, then you get someone to help that guy, and then you look for more opportunities. So I was at the point in my career where what can I do next? What's like the next step? Now this whole situation, I'm like back down here, but at the same time at 30% capacity. So it's like, it is a bit of an ego thing. So like you create something for 5 or 6 years, and then it comes back to making less money than you did in the first year. And the thing is as well, if you have some success, your standard of living rises. So you might potentially buy a better car for your family, or like send kids to better schools, or do things like that, which you thought would be no problem because you had estimations of your wage being here. So now it goes back to here, then you need to kind of reevaluate, like, well, what's important? And I think that's kind of cool because you realize like, well, maybe these kind of materialistic things I didn't potentially need. And maybe these core things I need to. Like I'm 31, so like I've obviously still got like boatloads of time, but I do feel in the fitness industry itself, in Spanish they call it juventud. You know, we say youthfulness. I think that's tied to fitness in a way. I think a lot of people come to a fitness or a trainer to kind of like get some of that gold dust of their lifestyle to rub off of them, you know?
Yeah.
So when I'm telling people about, I went surfing on the weekend, I went rock climbing, people like, that's so fucking cool, like, give me those vibes in this class. If I turn into another, like, 50-year-old guy complaining about my back and complaining about bills and mortgages, that guy gets enough from his other friends. So I'm just trying to see what I look like in 3 or 4 years, because I look at MTV as a great example because they've been around for like forever now, 30 or 40 years. And what do you always see? Like a beautiful man or woman presenter, 22 years old with a microphone, because those businesses know that's what people want. I would like to think in my gyms, my idea was that as I get older, I kind of look for the next generation, and that would kind of keep my gyms always fresh. Okay. Because like, for example, every city has one. Like my city, there's like old dudes who like understand weightlifting, understand gymnastics, and you can pay next to nothing to go there but they'll scream at you, they'll yell at you, and they'll kind of like, because they're looking to build athletes, and that's how you build athletes. You kind of break them down, build them up again. But they come to my gym and a lot of other gyms because they feel like they're getting looked after. They feel like this guy's going to carry me through the whole process. And also that gold dust thing, where like, oh, young, cool, whatever. And our profession is super young as well. So like, this didn't really exist 30 or 40 years ago. So we don't know what will be of us in 30 or 40 years, So I think we kind of need to reincarnate the business to always have that kind of element to it. And like, what are your thoughts on the issue of like the longevity of like a coach, personal trainer?
The longevity of a coach, personal trainer. Like, what do you mean?
Like, so for example, if you were like, majority of people like yourself and me, we're just training normal people, right? And do you think we'll be as desirable as coaches to them? And this is kind of like the whole aging process thing in like 20 or 30 years. Like, do you think?
I see.
Like if we become top tier experts and that's recognized, I think so. But I think you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I look at a lot of the fitness people that I follow, like on YouTube or whatever, and they just keep getting older, and they just like their reputation is already established. So that's the big thing. If you can establish credibility and reputation, then you're good to go. And then you don't need to, like, I totally agree with you in terms of like youthfulness and like you kind of give off that energy. But like, if you can establish reputation, and like a lot of these guys are getting older, like they're not even like I think of like CT Fletcher. Do you know who that is? Yeah. He's like, all he can do is curl. Same with Arnold. Like these guys are super old and they still like inspire and motivate people and open gyms.
So this is interesting. So in like 2018, in my businesses, I kind of went down this knowledge hole of just like trying to be the best coach, kind of trying to understand human movement better, but I wasn't training. And in 2017, I was just fucking absolutely ripped, and people said, and I had really long hair and that sort of thing. And I cut it short. And I just wanted to be like, hey, I'm going to become an expert in my thing. And a few members said to me, people who I was really close to, like, you've lost your aura. Like you're not training as much anymore. You're not throwing us down. You're not challenging. And I'm like, dude, like the last 6 months, I've just learned so much. So I kind of learned it's kind of like a marriage. You kind of like, you've got to have the knowledge. That's important. But you've also got to have, and obviously like the CT Fletcher, the Arnold reference, like that is very true. But unfortunately, I'm not at that level of like,
well,
yeah, but you get where I'm coming from. So I just think I need to live the example. And the big thing I say to people who I work with is like, dude, train 3 days a week for you're good. Because I've seen so many people go so hard and they think this is who I am now. I am this fucking beast. Like, ugh. But then what happens is they fall off and they fall off the cliff completely and they're worse than when they started because they just didn't because when the endorphins are running, you just want to train all the time. But most people don't have the consistency and most people don't have the work ethic to continue this thing. So I just think 3 days a week, 4 days a week, you're good. And that's what I try and preach. Like, for example, the first video I watched of yours, which made me discover your channel, the Elliot Hulse video, you see his kind of journey. And if someone discovered him now and his latest content, and that's the only version of him they knew, they might be like, who's this guy? And unfortunately for us in our profession, there isn't like a typical backlog of 10 years of videos. So what they see is what they see now. So if someone walks into my gym now, if they don't see me like relatively like fit, they might be like, bro, do you train? Like, do you do anything? I'm not saying I need to like, win the CrossFit Games or be at that level, but like you need to be able to throw down. Like you need to be able to.
What is your business? You're a walking advertisement.
Yeah, I think it's like if you want to sell if you're a BMW salesman and you sell cars, like you need to drive BMW. Like imagine if I drove to your house and like a beaten up Toyota trying to sell you a BMW, you would just be like, dude, like you're not living the lifestyle. So I've now discovered those life lessons, and that life lesson that it needs to be a marriage. And I obviously need to have mental health, family health, but I personally need to sweat and train a few times a week at least. and try and be mobile and all that sort of stuff.
Okay, you mentioned that you're when I mentioned what to call our video, I was going to call us personal trainers, and you mentioned that you're a movement coach. So what is the difference to you?
So I think the thing is, for me, is it's a diversity of things. So I kind of originally fell into that branch like CrossFit, and CrossFit is functional movement. But as I kind of dive deeper, a lot of principles of yoga, Pilates, and other disciplines I kind of really resonated with, and also guided meditations. So through that, we work on movement, okay? And through that, I'll coach them through the movement. And just for me, when I hear personal trainer, like growing up in Australia, there's a lot of gyms like Fitness First. I'm not sure if you have that in Canada, but just like the cliche gym, it'd be some roided up dude who would just be like, hey, dude, buy this protein, hire me as a personal trainer, and like 6 months, you're good to go. And for me, being like 17 or 18, I was kind of unaware of what that guy's journey was. And I thought, well, if I buy this like junky protein powder that the personal trainer is trying to sell me, I can get to where he is. Because at that time, it was all about aesthetics and trying to look like this guy. And I quickly learned that buying the protein powder won't get me there. You know, it'll be impossible through natural elements. So the thing is, for me, I associate personal trainer with and from a marketing standpoint, like when I say, hey guys, I'm a movement coach, that piques curiosity and piques interest, and it gives me the opportunity to kind of give my unique selling point. Because if I'm like, hey dude, I'm a personal trainer and I'm this much per hour, they'll be like, well, the other guy's more pretty, so I'm gonna go with him. So if I can give the opinion like, hey, this is gonna be more holistic, we're gonna look how you're sleeping, we're going to see what your dietary is like. We're going to talk about the relationships you have with your parents and what they had with food, because that's an impact. If we start by having those conversations, people are going to be like, hey, this guy's different. And people are always coming to someone like me or yourself because they failed a million times before, and we're the next guy. So if we're the next guy, we want to be the last guy. So I said, what steps can we take so I'm the last guy you speak to? And I would like this to be an education of 2 or 3 years, and you don't even need me. Wouldn't that be amazing? And then you tell all your friends how great I am, and then I can consistently live in this organism, and we have this great relationship. And through that, my gym has had, and my business have prospered because, and everyone kind of loses their stuff because they're like, how do you remember my kid's best friend's name? How did you remember that? And it depends what you want. If you want to build like a McDonald's of fitness gyms, you can't have that level of intimacy. But for me, only wanting X amount of members, I could go that deep and I could be that caring, I could be that considerate of looking after people. And that's why I feel being a movement coach, because we are talking about movement, is better than personal trainer. Because when I think personal trainer, I think I'm paying you for 1 hour, then you don't think about me again until I walk 1 minute into your studio again. But if you're a movement coach, I'm going to have a holistic approach on that.
That's interesting, man. That's So it's not necessarily that there's a fundamental difference to you. It's just you're trying to remove that stigma.
Yeah, I'd say so. And maybe that's a stigma that exists for me. And also, again, if you're a personal trainer, if you're trying to potentially upsell or talk about other services, like, well, I came here for this 1 hour workout. But if you're a movement coach, you can express interest in maybe doing these other disciplines, some homework by yourself, some with me. And that's also been something which has been really cool and really useful.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like it seemed like a package deal. Because you're right, the personal training model, it does seem like you're paying for an hour, you're getting me for an hour. Goodbye. I'm going to see my next client now. And that's sometimes how people view health and fitness in a way too. It's like, I'm going to put my 1 hour of the day into being fit, and then I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do the rest of the day. Whereas it's you and me both know it's a 24-hour thing, right? Like the sleep is included in those hours, the eating is included in those hours. So
I would like to think it's like a 360 holistic approach to how people are doing things and how to get them better, with the principles of strength and conditioning being important, but also those people being really aware and being really vulnerable. And I think just almost like trying to, you could call it reverse psychology, but almost even trying to like talk them out of it when they begin, being like, dude, this will take everything from you. This will take a level of dedication. This could take 6 months. This could take a year to get to where we want to go. And putting it like that, these people are like, oh, he's different. Because most trainers are just going to be like, hey, dude, just like buy 12 sessions and then like, let's see how we go. And when people say it like that, they've got like this mentality, which is so short term, where it's like, yes, I've got this money. Now I can buy something that I want. Well, I'm trying to like look through the other end of the telescope and be like, how do I get to you? How do I take you to where you want to go? How long that will take? Why has it failed before? And we can like plan this journey. And also for me, if I say, hey, this is going to take 9 months or a year at least, and we need to be like serious about this, if I get that kind of verbal commitment from them, that's something I can always come back to. Like, didn't you say you wanted to do this? Didn't we know this would take a year? Because a lot of people say, yeah, 2 months, 3 months. And if you say that, then after 3 months, they'll look at you and be like, hey, Zach, like I did everything you said and like I haven't got any better, which is obviously so toxic to begin with, because obviously you're not making decisions outside the gym for them. But if you do it that way, I think there can be a bit more longevity, a bit more success in their fitness.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think it's a bit of a mindset shift also for our culture and how we view health and fitness, and getting out of that box and seeing it like this isn't just a 1 hour in the gym thing. This is an all day, everyday thing. And you might not need a person for 1 hour. You might need someone to help you make decisions all the time. And what that looked like originally was someone who would sell you a diet plan, a workout plan, and that would kind of be it, just at the food but there's other elements to living a holistic lifestyle. Like, you know, all the little choices you make every single day, all those little decisions. And if you can have someone just help you make those tiny little tweaks every single day, it's not necessarily you need this massive overhaul going cold turkey on everything. Like it's just someone to steer you in the right direction every day, just to kind of keep you on course.
Yeah, because so many people, I feel, don't know what it feels like to be actually healthy, which I think is, and it's not me preaching down, but it's like we've kind of normalized a lot of things in our societies where like drinking copious amounts of alcohol every day or every second day isn't seen as taboo, or not that it should be, but it's kind of like, you know, I've seen so many people who are like, I just can't lose this weight, and then you break down the diet and like, oh, you're drinking alcohol every day, or like, oh, just 1 or 2 beers, like, oh, you're eating this every day, oh yeah, just it's like, yeah. And I think like the worst thing for everyone is kind of like every now and then, because I drink alcohol every now and then, and that could be a few months between drinks, just what it is. But for other people, every now and then could be every other day or whatever. And I'm not saying don't do these things, but I'm being like, if you're serious about this one thing, then we need to sacrifice this other thing. And I think a lot of people fall in the trap of thinking that they were successful before, but they weren't really successful before. They were just young, they had a really good metabolism, and they were doing a lot of activity without realizing it. So a lot of people when they're at university, they're going around campus, they were in their early 20s, so it didn't really affect their life too much. And they're saying, like, I just want to get back to where I was 6 or 7 years ago. And the issue is, like, you weren't good 6 or 7 years ago, just fortunate because your metabolism was quick and you happened to live 2 miles from where your bus was. You had to run there occasionally. You got lucky. You never had good principles in the first place. So let's kind of evaluate those pillars of your life, and then we can see what you want. And sometimes it comes down to you want to have this unhealthy thing more than you want to have this healthy thing. So it's like a bad fit. So it's like, I'm not going to take you on because if you're not willing to give those things up, this is going to lead to resentment because you're going to think I did you a disservice. So that's been something which has been interesting for me. I was going to say as well, Zach, how long's your YouTube journey been so far?
I've been on YouTube now for a few years, and it's really a snowball. Like you start off with very little traction, and then as the years go on, the time goes on, you put out a bunch of videos. Eventually, people are magnetized to you just by it's not always that you put out the best videos every day. It's that every once in a while you put out a video that really resonates with people. And for me, it's never been the same type of video. I've had the most success with like motivational videos because everyone needs a bit of motivation all the time, right? So that's probably the most consistent content that I put out. Yeah, I mean, my biggest video that's growing right now, aside from the Elliot Halls video, is injury motivation, because there wasn't a lot of that out there. And I'm not a physiotherapist or a doctor by any means. It was just a motivation to get you out of that. You get into this mental funk when you hurt yourself, and this is actually ties in exactly what you said about how you want to get back to how you were before. And that's not always the case, especially when you hurt yourself. If you or anyone watching has ever hurt yourself, had an injury from a sport or lifting or something, after you heal, you're not ever exactly the way you were. Sometimes you're clicking or you're grinding or something like that. So it's kind of the video was a motivation for people to accept that, I guess, right? Getting that people to that stage of acceptance so that they can grow from it.
Yeah. And I see that a lot because like a lot of athletes, you know, especially if you're using football, if we use football as an analogy, like there's so many people who just like had that yard of pace and they could just turn it on, and they have like, it could be ankle, knee, hamstring, whatever, and they just lose that turn of pace and like they're no good, unfortunately, if we're talking about that top level. And that can be something difficult to overcome, because if that is what you are, you know, and it's so funny, like the movie Friday Night Lights and the story of Ruby Miles, like that was him. He was football. And then when he had that injury, he's like, well, what am I now? So what I like to like preach is kind of like, hey, let's have this like, let's be more than one thing. And I get scared when people come to my gyms and they're just like, Oviedo strength, like, whoa, till I die, whoa. It might seem good on the top end, but like, if my gym is everything to you, which inherently is me, like this is going to fail. Like, you know, I can't live up to the expectations. And it happened to me because when I first opened the gym, I did too much for the members. And then when it got to a point where there was too many people for me to give that kind of like on top of service, people got resentful because like, oh, you're not bringing me my kettlebell now when you have a class of 12 people. You know, or like it's my husband's birthday tomorrow and he's coming to the gym. Like, what are the members organizing for him? And like, I'm super important in this person's life, which is cool. But if we've got 150 members here, 100 at the other place, 250, like I can't keep on top of 250's birthdays. Like that was my fault. Maybe I did too much for the first group of members. You know,
that's interesting. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to figure out that balance.
Yeah, so like we have like a tribal system. So we have coaches, and each coach is a tribe, and he looks after that tribe, and they have responsibilities of those people. But at the same time, to what point? You know, like you want to be helpful, you want to be accessible to these people, but at the same time, you don't want to overcommit yourself, because you know you can't go to 250 birthday parties. Unfortunately, you know, you can't do that. So you need to know when the time is to scale back in regards to those relationships. So that's cool. The injury motivational video. So do you think you'll go into making a series of them?
You know what, man, my channel has just been putting out what I found interesting. It's really that's it. I've been trying for years to figure out what theme, you know, because a lot of people's channels, they have a certain feel to them. And for me, I've just been putting out what interests me, and that keeps me motivated and inspired. And I don't feel like I'm putting that much pressure on myself. I feel like I can come up with unique content that way. It's why I can have podcasts where I talk about whatever. It's why we're talking right now, because I keep I don't have a very a strong set of rules or guidelines for my channel, and I think I'm going to keep it that way.
Yeah, and I see that some people go like too much in one direction, which I think, I don't know. Obviously, I'm no expert in YouTube, but maybe from like a monetization aspect, that's more successful for some people. But yeah, I think it's cool. Like I enjoy when I go on YouTube, if I find someone I resonate with, I kind of like to see their journey in other elements and to see a kind of like 360 view of them. I personally enjoy that. I don't just want my travel guy to only talk about travel and get pissed off when like I see his dog. Like I'm not going to be that guy. You know, I like to have a wide varied interest in that. So yeah, like yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you, what about your channel?
Yeah, so I started 2 weeks ago, and it's something I wanted to do for like maybe it's how you started. For like there was this time period where I'm like, oh, this would be a great video. That would be a great video. And I was like, do I get a videographer? Do I get a friend with a camera? Do I do it myself? And I finally got the guts to create my own one. And I've been on Instagram and like Facebook and like through my combined followers on those platforms, it would be 5,000 or 6,000 people. But and I was putting so much energy into Instagram, and I think Instagram only rewards. Like obviously, there's text associated, but 99 times out of 100, it only rewards aesthetic photos. Okay, and by aesthetic, I mean yes, it could be the ocean. Yes, it could be someone attractive in a bikini or whatever. That's the thing which creates traction. And unfortunately, I'm not a sunrise. I'm none of those things. So I think YouTube could potentially be where I find my kind of like place where I can express myself. And having children myself, I think it'd be cool to document my life like authentically. And in a few years' time, or 10 or 20 or 30, they can go back and like look at granddaddy or look at dad,
Yeah.
When I'm like a head like Futurama, just like living in the water. They can like look back and be like, that's what it was like when he had a body. But yeah, so first of all, I'm doing it for me. And then along that way, if people have interest, I haven't really spoken too much about my own training, or like I'm not trying to sell anybody. Like I hate nothing worse than like you find an interesting guy and every video is 15 minutes of him just trying to sell you. So I just want to like be expressive of what I do. Maybe create like a newsletter, and if people want to hear more, get their information, and then we can go down the newsletter route and then kind of grow a relationship. So I'm doing this to help build personal relationships with people, which could hopefully lead similar to our connection, or in the future trying to help people get a bit better with their fitness objectives. So that's kind of like what I would like my channel to be. And I've just put out videos like this. So like I think I've done like 20 videos in 14 days or something, or 20 videos in 16 days. And some of them are a bit like rough, but if you actually watch them, you can see your progression in like, I'm getting better at editing. I'm getting better at understanding like cuts and storylines and those aesthetic things which are associated with it. So yeah, how often do you put out videos? Is there any sort of thing?
Nope. I did that for a while. There was a period I challenged myself to put out a video every day for, I did that for 50 days. Like I gave myself the weekends off. And I think of those 50 videos, maybe 2 of them did well. So that really just goes to show you. And like one of them was that injury motivation, or like maybe a handful of them did okay. But that just goes to show you that not every single YouTube video is going to strike gold. Like you said.
But I was going to say, but then again, if you didn't do the 50 videos, maybe the injury motivation idea would never come.
Oh,
so
exactly.
It's kind of like,
That's kind of like when you put out a lot of content, it's a lot of feelers, right? To see what people are into. And it's like what you said earlier with you need to have a purpose. You need to enjoy what you're doing. Like for you, you're thinking of your legacy, you're thinking of, your children seeing it one day. Like you have all those other motivators. So for you, it's not necessarily going to be about how many subscribers and viewers you get, because you have this other motivation for it, which is really
like I am checking on a daily basis to see how many subscribers I want. So it is a bit of an ego. I'm not sure if it's ego thing, but I'm like, my story's fantastic. Why aren't you tuning in?
So you're trying to build a community, right?
And I guess the thing for me, my Spanish videos are what gets way more views at the moment, and maybe that's because here I've got like a small following in the city I live. So I put it in a few WhatsApp groups, and then those people just go to it, which is obviously good. But I prefer to do it in my native language, and for kind of their grand terms, like global exposure. Like I don't mean global exposure, but I mean for more people to be able to interpret the videos. I think I prefer to do it in English, which I prefer to do. So I just see it as like an
advantage in that you're from different places. Like that is a huge edge, tapping into different YouTube demographics.
Oh dude, and I've got like an epic Volkswagen Westfalia van, which I just travel around all the time with, and I've never like put it on my social media or anything, just because I see so many people just like prostitute out that lifestyle a bit, and it's just kind of like, because because you see these people like, hey, I've lived in a van for the last 120 days. You're like, dude, you're wearing makeup, your hair's perfect, you just got a haircut, like you're obviously using whatever shaver, like anyone who's like lived that lifestyle can see that and look through it and be like, dude, you're full of shit. So excuse my language. So it's really important for me, if I bring those elements into my videos, I just want it to be authentic, and I just don't want it to be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
Yeah. And so that's really important to me. So when we can travel again, I might make some like videos of the trips we do and stuff, because I love, like, for example, for me, I typically just, put typically like, I'm looking at writing a program for this as well, because typically I just like take maybe like a 50 or a 45-pound dumbbell and do kind of like cardio style workouts with that. Maybe a 20-pound or 15-pound for my wife, and then we do that, and I'd love to like do that sort of trip, which could maybe be a few weeks, and then kind of make videos about that, of how we trained and how we kept active. Because I think everyone, and like you said it, everyone's looking for motivation in some form or another, and since I've been training in my garage for lockdown, I have put on the people I like, and I watch their videos, and I train to those videos in large chunks. So that's been something which I've been trying to do.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I think that you have the right personality for YouTube, because I can tell that you're very comfortable talking in front of a camera. You're very comfortable talking to a stranger. You have a lot of charisma, and I think that you're someone who could probably just do well with the phone like this and just talk for 3 to 5 minutes. You have a message that hits you, and you're like, shotgun message. And you don't need any editing or aesthetic or anything. And that's a lesson that I learned.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment, Zach. And like, I have doing everything on my XR, like this phone has 2 or 3 years now to it. And I've been filming everything on that. And for audio, because I've been doing like voice over the top, it's kind of like a narrative thing. I just go in the spare bed, in the spare bathroom, because it's really good echo. I'm using this to record audio. So like, I thought about getting maybe like an iPhone 12 or something, just because it's 4K, and I get that kind of like quick, I can edit quick, I can do things like that. I thought about getting a proper camera, but I'm not sure, would the lag time just kill me,
Yeah.
What's been your experience?
I mean, in my experience, do you know who Gary V is? Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Gary V.
So he really inspired me, and I learned a lot from him about just do what you can with what you have. Just put out content. Eventually, you're probably going to get a new phone. It's going to have a better camera. Maybe a really successful YouTuber will tell you to buy this equipment or whatever, but like, again, I'm not saying that I have very small YouTube success, right? But that's just because I stopped worrying. Like, I bought this mic because I do a lot of audio, but I just film what I can with what I have. I put out content. I don't think about it. I just do it. Like, sometimes my camera
like the audio is important though. Like, there's nothing worse than, and that's why I'm doing so many narrative over the top sort of things. I did buy off Amazon like a wireless mic, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of like my first like investment, I'd say, into it. And it's just being like authentic. And I think anyone who sees themselves back the first few times, there is like cringeworthy moments where you're just like, but I'm trying to, like, obviously now, like, not being 15 years old, I can like look at myself and like deal with it a little bit more. So I am trying to be, as I mentioned before, authentic in the videos, but I have something cool to say. I don't want to just make a video for making a video. I want there to be like a traction point. Like, there needs to be, like, it just can't be me like, well, I'm going to do back today, and I probably should do some squats. Like, that could be a thing, but then someone comes in and there's some sort of turning point. So I see everything I do as kind of like a little movie. Like, there needs to be like a protagonist, or there needs to be like a protagonist point. There needs to be a resolution, and then it needs to finish like an episode of like Wonder Years, where there's like this or Scrubs. There's like this profound like little moment which kind of ties everything together. And that's what I'm trying to do, consciously or unconsciously, I don't know. But it's just to make it feel like, because I think the sort of videos I want to make, if we have 100 people, 99 will think they're garbage. But I think the one person who resonates with it, they'll go hard on the content, and they're the kind of people I want. Like, again, I prefer 1 in 100 to like really care and resonate, or 1 in 1,000 even, than like people who are just like shooting in and getting views for something that isn't. And I was going to say, like, how's your wife been with you on your YouTube journey? Has she been supportive, or what's been that whole journey like?
That's an interesting question. I do my YouTubing when I'm alone and I have the space to myself, because I find that, when there's other people around, it can be distracting. It can get in the way of the video. So YouTube is very much been a personal journey. Some people just don't really like to be on camera. My wife is one of those people. Like she's been in a couple of my videos, but she's not someone who likes to be on camera that much. So that's going to depend on, that's going to differ on whoever. Everyone's different, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So she supports me. It took a long time, I think, for not just my wife, but for everybody to get it. Because they need to see proof that what you're doing can work. So now she gets it. Now she's like, okay, you're getting a following. Like, now you're monetized. Like, it's all coming together now. But at first she was like, why are you filming this? Like, like she like the vlogging lifestyle type stuff, she didn't really get it, because it's like, what's the point? But now she gets it.
Yeah, and that's what I try and so like, for example, for me, pulling like these little videos together, I might pull over the car for a second, and like, you just film for a second, like, yeah, because this is just going to be a 2-second cutscene, and like for people to get that, or like, or sometimes even the past few weeks, because I haven't started, my phone runs out of battery. Dude, film this, but turn it horizontally, like, because we need to get this shot now. Things like that. And I just don't want it to turn into, because I follow a few people who I know personally or whatever, and they've like blown up, like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they have kids, and they just have the camera in their kids' faces the whole time. And I'm just thinking to myself, what will that kid be like in 10 years? Because like, would that lead to bullying? Would that lead to whatever? So my kids are occasionally in my videos and stuff, but it's always just like, hey, there's Lewis. Like, it's not like, hey, Lewis, do something funny, like that joke we talked about yesterday.
Yeah, that's a fine line.
Because there's nothing more cringeworthy than me. Like, oh, my son like loves Bob Dylan and he sings his songs. Sing a song, and his son like reluctantly like sings a song which he knows nothing about. So, and I see it with like opening videos. You see these kids who are like 3 years old, and they're opening packages and presents, and the parents are filming it and they're monetizing off it. And it's just like, at what point is that like okay?
Yeah, I know. I don't have kids, so that is not a question that I've had to face. But I agree with you. Like, I've seen YouTubers that their kids are in the spotlight, and I don't know what their intentions are, but there's also YouTubers that if their kid is in the video, it's just for like, it's just a few seconds, just like you said. And I think that's the right way to do it, because those kids might think it's exciting at the time, but they might change their mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's really interesting, because like, when you upload the videos, there's a thing that says it's not for kids. Do you see that in the option? Yeah. And I think that's because YouTube got sued massively for content that kind of got in the hands of kids that shouldn't have.
I'm aware of all that. That was crazy stuff.
Yeah, so I don't really know the story. So what happened exactly?
Well, there were just a lot of companies that were they were advertising to kids and making it really kid friendly, like fun thumbnails, fun titles, fun characters that everyone recognizes, and then the videos were just like really controversial, or really like they were pushing sales and like propaganda, marketing, stuff like that. But like, kids absorb things like a sponge, right? So there was a large community on YouTube of people that were doing this, and even like in the darkest areas of like finding kids who were like, they're able to reach kids that were 12 years and younger, not paying attention to the age guidelines, and like dark stuff. So YouTube really had to crack down on separating.
And to be honest, like, sometimes, like, so for example, my son now loves Sonic and Super Mario and stuff, and like sometimes he's like, oh, can I watch like this Sonic video? And you're like, okay, and you put it on. The video is only 3 or 4 minutes, but then it leads on to another video and another video. And you can very quickly go in this chain which just sends you in like a whole nother direction. And I think it's like good. YouTube have cracked down on that stuff, and I think like the app stores need to do the same things, you know, because in advertisements inside apps, like we control tablet time, like the iPad device, but some parents don't do so much, and some kids know how to like download apps themselves, and they have advertising in those apps. You just don't know what they're going to see. So again, like it is like obviously YouTube have a responsibility, but at the same time the parents have a responsibility. I don't think like it's not 1997 where you can just turn on the TV and like, oh, what's this? Like I'm 100% sure you'll have no issues. Like this is something which you interact with, and if something you interact with, you can like change that interface. So it's going to be interesting. So out of curiosity, what do you think your next video or series of videos are going to be? Have you had much inspiration lately?
I mean, I just yesterday. Funny that you brought up my wife. She helped me film. This was just something that I always wanted to do. I got like one of the hottest hot sauces for Christmas. That's what
awesome.
I asked for, and she.
Yeah, I
helped
think I
me
saw a
film.
thumbnail for it. Yeah.
Yeah, she helped me film a video, and I'm putting that out. I've got a lot of random stuff just like lined up, like video ideas, like totally around. I've done series before, but
so it's super interesting. So like Mr. Beast, like obviously you're familiar with Mr. Beast, and for people who don't know, he's just like the YouTubing god basically, and he said people love watching people suffer, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like negative suffering, but people love to see a journey. So I'm thinking like, so I'm at like 193. So I'm like, when I get 200 subscribers, should I do something that has the number 200 in it that could sometimes bring more people in, as long as it follows my pillars of being authentic and stuff? You know, maybe like 200 push-ups every hour for something, or you know, like I watched this Mr. Beast video where he the movie B, he read the script of the movie B, and every time he read B, he would repeat the word B, and it was a 2-hour or 3-hour video, and this is when he had like no followers or no subscribers, or like a very, very small base. And how many people would have said, this guy's an idiot, this guy's got no idea what he's doing? But he was a genius. Like he is a genius. For me, you can't say he's not. And he saw the trend before it happened.
Yeah.
And they say he could make $1 billion in 2021. And
believe it, man. The way that he throws out money, he must be taking it in.
Yeah, and the thing is, like I first discovered him on Facebook, and I saw these videos. I'm like, that's fake. Like no one would just go 10 grand, 10 grand, 10 grand. Let alone someone who's in his early 20s. Like that wouldn't be real. But that piqued my interest, and I went in there more. So I would like to see, because he's doing this to gain traction, but I'd like to see what he really wants to talk about, you know? Because true. I think, because that's the interesting thing. They say with Hollywood actors, they first make the movie the studio one, then they make the movie their agent wants, and then you finally see the movie they want to make. So I think that would be really interesting. And I think it'll be interesting when because people want to understand it. He's got 50 million subscribers. So when he finally makes the videos he wants to make, like a lot of them will leave, you know, similar to the Elliot Hole situation. So I think it's interesting to see where that will go in relation to Mr. Beast. So were the hot sauces, were they hot? Like talk me through it. How hot were they?
You know what? I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it for Friday, but I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you asking me about it.
Okay.
So, no, go ahead.
Did your wife partake in taking the hot sauce?
No, she's not about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we've gone over an hour here, but I didn't even notice. This has been actually a really fun podcast.
No, thank you, Zach, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, and this would be really awesome for me in the future to look at this, to look back at this in maybe 6 months, a year, 2, 5, who knows, and to see how we both progressed. Maybe you'll be like, oh, I knew that guy before he was in jail, you know, or something like that.
Yeah. So where can people find you? You want to just shout out your
Yeah, cool. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at Kitcho, KITCHO7. Okay, you can follow me on Instagram if people want to check that out. Can you put a link to my YouTube channel in the subscription? if anyone follows, I'm actually doing a raffle. So my gym has a line of apparel, and when we get to 200 subscribers, and we're only 7 off, I'll like randomly draw out a number, and someone will win a shirt. So yeah, it's something. Okay, it's not a Mr. Beast like buying a house or an island.
You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll definitely link Kitcho's YouTube channel in my description. So yeah, go check him out, man. Help him build his YouTube audience. He's gonna put out some good stuff. I got a good feeling about it.
Oh, cool, Zach. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna end the podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for more videos. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider doing so for more podcasts like this. Subscribe to Kitcho, and we'll see you guys next time.